the Sugar and Spikes podcast, a show for everyone trying to navigate business and life without losing their minds. I'm Dez, a coach and consultant who is entirely overeducated, habitually overdressed, and obnoxiously honest.
And I'm Tammy. I'm a psychologist. Was I supposed to say more?
You know what? Enough said. We talk about mindset, mental health, and making it all work in the big, bad business world.
One quick note. We may be mental health professionals, but we're not your mental health professionals.
So, enjoy the show. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to yet another Sugar and Spikes podcast. I'm not saying I'm Dez.
But you are.
I am, in fact, Dez.
I always wonder, is she going to say it? You guys know who we are.
Yeah. No introductions necessary.
Mm-mm.
I don't know. I feel like we're recording this live, but we're totally not. I want to be like,
know.
what's up, internet?
I know.
How you doing tonight?
It's not like, I know, it does feel that way. It's not our usual day to record, too.
It's really not. And the thing is I was thinking about this, and maybe pro tip for any future podcasters out there or folks that have podcasts, I realize I'm so much more animated and like on it with podcasts. Granted, I'm totally setting this up so like it ends up being shitty.
People are going to be like, she's not animated. What is she talking about?
I'm so much more animated after listening to other podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
Because this weekend I listened to 20 hours worth of podcasts.
Just a few.
Just a few.
One or two.
You know, not much, just a few. We did a 10-hour road trip to and from, and that was lengthy, and listened to some of the podcast standards, a lot of the McElroy brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Good shit. McElroy brothers, we love you.
We do love you.
If you're listening, come on the show.
I'm sure they're listening.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know. The McElroy wife may. Like, maybe. Maybe.
Long time fans. All right.
I don't know. Anyways, that just kind of explains like where I am. Like, what's up, internet? Because I was listening to like live episodes. Anyways, someone take this mic away from me because
turn her mic down.
It's just not going well already. But you know what?
We're doing this.
I was gonna say it ties into our topic.
It does.
When shit just doesn't go well.
You tried your best.
You try it. You plan for the best.
Mm-hmm.
It's assuming there was planning involved.
Well, we're going to assume.
Yes. Although it's not the best to assume.
True.
But yeah, so this week, one thing that I wanted to kind of touch on and talk about is what, like, managing when shit just goes wrong.
Yeah.
Because the thing is like, if you guys haven't gathered yet, or if you're a new listener, so much of this podcast is fueled by what happens to me and Tammy in real life. Well disguised. Sometimes not well disguised.
Not well disguised.
And
we try. It's us doing work for the listener.
Yes. Life experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And something that our loyal listeners may not know is I am a huge proponent of the birthday month.
You are. That is true.
Like, only child, born and raised in Southern California.
Yes.
I love the birthday month.
You do. But the universe has got no love for you this year.
Fuck, this year, man. It is like, and I feel like as soon as December 1st hit, it was just like, no. Like,
just testing you.
From like big things and really stressful things, like, yeah, like unexpected, like significant surprises.
Yeah.
To like stupid, petty, insignificant things and like frivolous hobby things, just nothing going right.
No, it was like very much, I think I said to you, like the universe is just kicking you while you're down.
And there comes a point where even if you try to like hold your head high, or if you try to like stay positive, if you try to like keep going, then even the small stuff just becomes really big. And then you have like, I have this over dramatic response, and then things that like shouldn't take up that much emotional energy take up all of the emotional energy. And the next thing I know, I find that I'm crying, texting you because the timber's lost.
Well, that was a big deal. In all fairness, that was not great.
Yeah. Whole other podcast.
Oh my gosh. Yes, coming.
Right?
Whatever.
Spoiler.
Anyway, but yes,
Yeah.
I mean, so like you cope until you go over that emotional cliff, right?
Well, and the thing is, and I was thinking about this, I think that sometimes what we think is coping isn't actually coping, and it's ignoring.
Yeah.
Like, that was one thing I realized. And we've talked about it a bit in
Mhm.
other episodes, where like if things go wrong, like I know personally, and I think you do it too, like there's this gut reaction of just moving forward, like, okay, noted, I'm continuing on, like
Yeah.
moving down the path. But
Yep.
then that ignoring piece, not really acknowledging what that means, or any sort of emotions or feelings, it all comes like barreling down on you at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I was reading this really interesting book today about self-compassion, and it talked about, it kind of ties into this topic, but it talked about the difference between like the being strong versus asking for what you need, and
Mhm.
kind of thinking about the being strong kind of way or the self-compassion way.
Mhm.
And the being strong way is like, I got it, I'm moving on.
Mhm.
And the being strong way is saying, you know, I just need a minute because I'm really disappointed in how things turned out, and I
Yeah.
just need to take a hot second.
Yeah.
And I think about that, and it's kind of like what you're talking about.
Mhm.
We're kind of conditioned and programmed to be like, keep a brave face, stay positive.
Well, and it's a merit badge, right? Like,
Right.
no.
Yeah.
Even, I don't know if it's an even or especially for females. Like, it's a merit badge of, I'm not emotional. I don't get upset. I'm super, I don't know, professional isn't the word,
Tough.
but
I'm
like,
tough.
I'm tough. Like, I can take what comes at me. And the thing is I'm just like thinking through this right now as we're talking, right? But the thing is like, I kind of don't care what it is like your hopes were or how small they were. There was a level of emotional investment. There was a level of what's that word? Where like you leave yourself open a bit. Vulnerability. There's like a level of vulnerability for having hope around anything, for having excitement around anything.
Yeah.
There's a level of vulnerability because you're putting emotional energy into something that you fully cannot control. Like, you may be able to control some pieces, but you can't control it all. So you're putting a piece of yourself out there, and that's scary and hard.
It is scary and hard. It
Mhm.
really is. And like this whole idea that we're taught to, quote, be strong, be tough, and the idea of showing or experiencing emotion
Mm-hmm.
is weak. But honestly, like, it takes way more strength to experience crushing emotion
Mm-hmm.
and then say, okay, I'm going to move forward from that.
Well, and on top of that, I think in a different light, it also takes a lot of strength and confidence to experience, like, I don't know, the petty or minor emotion.
Mhm.
Like, to have an emotional response around something that maybe isn't as impacting as a lot of things are, but still to have like almost not an extreme reaction, but to like feel it.
Yeah.
Like, that takes, I feel like that takes a lot of self-compassion. I'm not saying like be melodramatic about it, but to like let yourself feel whatever level it is.
Mhm.
Because there's an implicit judgment around, well, this is a stupid feeling, it shouldn't be this bad.
Right.
Let's take away the shouldn't. Like, it is. I don't care what it should or shouldn't be. Like,
Right.
it is.
Yeah.
And sit with it for a second, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think when we take away the judgment from it, whatever you're experiencing is real and valid because it's happening to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so acknowledging that can be really tough. Like, this seems like such a minor thing. Why am I getting so upset about it?
Mhm.
But there's a reason you're getting so upset, and you don't even necessarily need to sit there and examine it or
Mhm.
anything like that. But just say, you know what, like I'm feeling it for a hot minute, and just like kind of go with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be hard to do because we're conditioned not to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're right. Sometimes we mistake avoidance for coping,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because when you're being tough or just trying to, quote, stay positive,
Mm-hmm.
to a certain degree, that results in some avoidance of what, if you are feeling negative things, you're kind of pushing them away, trying not to feel them or pushing them aside. And
Mhm.
so I don't know. I think you're right. That's not really coping. We're taught that it is, but it isn't.
No, and I'm not saying that like everything that goes wrong needs to be this catastrophic like thing, but
But think about even how we're saying it. We're
Mhm.
like, oh, your emotions. We're not saying you have to be catastrophic. Like, we're like qualifying it. We're saying,
Yeah.
oh, if you feel your emotion, it doesn't have to be a catastrophe. It doesn't have to be like it's even the language that we use to
Mhm.
discuss feeling emotion is like,
Mhm.
but not too strong. Like, keep it under. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like,
yeah.
but that is how we're taught, how we grow up, the
Mhm.
values that we're raised with,
Mhm.
and all of that kind of informs that. So I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just saying I think it's interesting that we keep qualifying it.
Yeah,
that way.
that we're saying it's okay, but also we're qualified.
Yeah,
hold
well,
on.
hold on. You know, like,
And I guess I would say if we were to not qualify it, I would say that the intensity that you feel something can be indicative of something else.
yeah,
Like, I mean, we've talked about it before where, like, I've texted you, like, we'll use the Timbers example and text you freaking out, like, can't believe this happened, blah, 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 like, in a wreck. We all know it's not about that.
right.
But, like, even if, going down this, like, rabbit hole, even if we don't address it, which we didn't, and then I go through that. Like, I go through those emotions, those, like, not gonna say ridiculous, but I go through those intense emotions.
Yeah.
And I wake up the next morning feeling better. What's wrong with that situation?
Nothing.
Like there's a process that needed to happen clearly on some sort of level.
Right.
I went through it.
And I think that, you know, we need to start conceptualizing our emotions as telling us something. They're
Mhm.
messages that our body and our mind and our soul are giving us. They're saying, pay attention to this. This is
Yeah.
important.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we do that, hopefully we can move through it. I
Yeah.
think sometimes we can feel overwhelmed by our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you have to do very thoughtful coping.
Mm-hmm.
So you can feel the distress but tolerate it.
Yeah.
But that I don't think is the same as saying, well, I feel it too intensely.
Mm-hmm.
Like, or I'm not going to be melodramatic or whatever. I think feel it at whatever level you need to and
Mhm.
still feel like it's you
Mm-hmm.
being in control of you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And I think it's interesting that we're kind of talking about this, and I know personally, like, I've kind of been experiencing it a bit more lately. Like, we're towards the end of the year. We know, like, seasonal affective disorder or seasonal. Yeah, it's disorder. I was like, it's depression, but
is.
no, it's
It's
sad. Like, those things happen. Yeah, like, sad is dependent on like the seasons, but towards the end of the year, emotions are more intense
For lots of
for
reasons.
a lot of reasons. And I know as business owners or like business driven folks or people who are just constantly like looking to grow and like working on getting that next level, the end of the year can easily be a time where like you realize things didn't go the way you wanted.
Or you didn't hit your benchmarks.
Or you didn't hit your
goals.
benchmarks. And we talked about the year in review in the last episode.
I hope people found that helpful.
I was like gave space to kind of like think about what they cared about.
Yeah.
But I think I don't want to use the word sensitivity, but it's the only thing that's coming to mind. But like that heightened emotionality can be more prevalent because there are all these other realizations, and kind of connecting it all together is really hard. But then like once you do, then we're kind of faced with honestly what I wanted to talk about this episode,
We got
which is
off track, but that's okay.
I mean, on track, off track. It only matters if you're on a roller coaster. What I like this idea of planning and then everything kind of going to hell.
Yeah.
We started there, maybe?
We did start there.
A little bit.
Got a little off track. But I think it all relates.
Yeah.
Right? Because, yeah, sometimes best laid plans, man, it just doesn't go according to plan.
Yeah.
Right? It just doesn't.
Well, and the idea of planning, like, and I mentioned this a little earlier, I don't care how much you plan, there are still anomalies. There are still things out of your control.
Yeah, there's always wild cards in the deck, you know? Like, you can't, we're just not in control of our entire lives. Like, it'd be comforting if we were, and we aren't.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be those variables that we didn't account for, or because we couldn't.
Yeah.
You know? So what happens when one thing kind of falls apart versus like the whole thing? Right? And no, go ahead. I interrupted you.
No. I like where you're going. Keep.
Oh, okay. So like when one thing goes wrong, we feel much more able to kind of keep things going in the direction we want. But when everything just kind of explodes in our face, like that might not be a moment to keep trying to drive the car down the road. Like, it might be a time to kind of sit there, figure out what happened, what's wrong, how you feel about it, like what you're gonna, and then, you know, kind of process it at whatever that means for you. Some people it means talking about it. Some people it means other things. So I don't have any like preconceived idea of like, oh, you have to do like some deep dark processing about it.
Yeah.
But process it in your way.
Yeah. And maybe it's not processing. Like, I think if we keep it objective and kind of pull the emotional direction out of it, but like if you're feeling like if you're sitting there and everything feels like it's exploded, I think about this project that I was working on over the summer, and there were countless times where it felt like everything was just like exploded in my face, and the only thing that I could do was be like, oh my god, like acknowledge like that, even that moment of acknowledgement of, okay, I feel like everything has exploded, and yes, it has.
Yeah.
What do I do in this rubble? Find like that one goal, like what is the end result? What are we still looking for? What has that passed? Is it still something we can accomplish? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like this regrouping, right? Even if it's with yourself, with your team, with whoever, an internal regrouping, a actual regrouping, right? And saying, okay, where were we headed? Kind of a quick debriefing almost.
Yeah.
Like, where were we headed? What got in the way? How do we put out the fire and keep moving in the direction we were headed?
And that's where I feel like I'm saying this more and more often, but like that's where a team is so helpful, or like having a partner if you're an entrepreneur, like having someone that will give you space to like have that freak out moment and give you space to be like, this is shit, like this is all shit, or like we're all gonna die, you know, like these catastrophic like responses give you space without any judgment, and then come back in and be like, and what are we trying to do?
Right.
You know?
So like, okay, had the freak out.
Yeah.
Okay, are you feeling better? Right? But that goes back to almost like what I've talked to you about, or what we've talked about in terms of change. It's paradoxical, change is, because you have to see things as they are and not pretend it's not happening.
Yeah.
But see it and accept it, not like it, right? Acceptance, liking, two different things. See it and accept it as it is. And once you've done that,
Mhm.
then you can change.
Yeah.
Right? So that acceptance piece, that
Mhm.
seeing reality for what it is,
Mhm.
can come with some messiness to it,
Mhm.
right? Because you can't just be like, oh yeah, it failed, whatever. Like, no,
No,
no, like take a minute.
like there's definitely process work, and I feel like
Even if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you
well,
know?
and that's where I've been a lot recently. Like we talked about, like my birthday month kind of going to shit. Like these last few days, even I've just been like, this is the this is the situation, this multifaceted thing where I'm like, things aren't what I thought that they would be.
Right.
And, you know,
Yeah.
like, but like, even on that level, things aren't where I thought they'd be, like at my age, in a business, in the pod. Like, doesn't matter. Things aren't where in general.
Right.
And granted, like birthday month, like everything feels like it's compounded, but it just sitting with the okay. And then, like, recently, my internal monologue has been, well, you can stew about it or note it and plan from here.
Right.
And then again, we all know plans don't go according to
Well,
plan, but like, what do you do from
right. So
Yeah.
basically, what you're saying is like you can kind of ruminate on it and
Mhm.
kind of catastrophize and kind of go down that negative self talk road.
Mhm.
Or you can say, okay, this is what happened.
Mhm.
Where do I go from here?
Mhm.
How do I move in a positive direction?
Yeah.
Even if it's like a baby step,
Mhm.
right? Because that will kind of shut down some of that negative chatter and
Mhm.
help you regain a sense of like some control
Mhm.
um over what's going on.
Yeah. And so one thing is, and we've mentioned this gal before a couple of times, but Amanda Francis has the saying of like, this or something better. Like when you think about what it is you want, then you put that all out there, and it's like you say to the universe or whatever, or a practice you have, like this or something better, right? And you leave it up to the universe. And one thing that I've been playing with recently is this idea of this now make it better.
Okay.
Like, this is where I am now. How do I get to like the next level? Like, how
I
do I
like
get
that.
to a better situation? Like, this is what it is now, something better,
Yeah.
you know?
I love that.
Thanks.
Yeah. So it's like acceptance and change,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Acceptance, which comes
Mhm.
first, and then
Now.
now change.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to decide
Exactly.
because it doesn't mean you have to still move in the in the way the goal was. Maybe the goal
Exactly.
has changed.
Mhm.
Maybe you've added something. Maybe you want to go in an entirely different direction or a little bit of a different direction, or you realize that the goal you were trying to get to is more of a 5-year plan than a 1-year plan, or like I think that there's a lot of and now make it better can look a lot of different ways.
And I mean, personally, one reason why it's resonated so much recently is because there's a lot of uncertainty, a bit of lack of clarity around what I do want things to look like.
Yeah.
And so often we're told, have this vision, have this well defined idea. And it's hard, like having that. Like people ask about 5-year plans, and we all know how I feel about 5-year plans. I was the one that had the 5-year plan. I was the one that had the 10-year plan and junked all of it. And now this idea of this now something better, like it leaves it up to I'm going to do my part. Like I'm going to do the work to make it better. I don't know what that's going to be right now, but what's accessible, you know?
Yeah.
So sorry, my dog is dreaming and it
Oh
was
my
really
God, it
cute.
was hilarious.
Yeah, so I think that's another piece is there's enough pressure on us to perform, to hit goals, which can be good. And sometimes we've talked about this before, like it's getting to the next day, it's giving yourself those moments. So giving the ambiguity of like even was today better than yesterday? Cool. Like it takes the pressure off. And
Yeah.
I'm
We're-
all about taking the pressure off.
You're so process oriented right now. So like you can be outcome driven,
Mhm.
but sometimes that leads us to not actually be present in the moment and
Mhm.
not actually to enjoy what's going on or
Mhm.
really even kind of like I know I get this way sometimes is I'm so outcome driven that I'm like a zombie in my day to day.
Mhm.
I'm not remembering to take a minute. I'm not remembering to enjoy. I'm just kind of doing.
Mhm.
And so sometimes we need to slow down and kind of
Mhm.
remember to take things in and remember what's good and press towards the future
Mhm.
and enjoy today. I think
Yeah.
that part gets lost.
Mhm.
And so I think that's really important. So that's kind of what you're talking about. Like we can be outcome driven and also be questioning. We can be
Mhm.
like we can be like, well, I'm in a phase right now where I really don't know what I want the outcomes to be, and
Mhm.
so I'm going to take some time and kind of explore that and slow down for a minute.
Mhm.
And I think that that's okay to do. I think I forget to do it. I'm sure other
Mhm.
people forget to do it, and
Yeah.
we feel the pressure to create, and deliver.
Mhm. Yeah. Which is a whole other
Oh,
like tangent.
yeah. But I mean, like, what you were saying kind of got me thinking about that because you were like, I had the 5-year plan, 10-year plan, and like,
Mhm.
I think sometimes we can have plans and not really realize because there's no way to know, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'll take grad school for example. If
Mhm.
I had known what grad school was going to be when I started it, I never would have gone to grad
Yeah.
school. Not ever.
If you had known that you're going to have the job you have right now, would you have gone to grad school?
Yes. But I know, but like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You
Like,
never know.
but this is not, but the job I have now was not the job I envisioned having
Yes.
when I started grad
Mhm.
school. I am not where I thought I'd be.
You're not the orientation you thought
I'm
you
not
were.
the orientation I thought I'd be.
It's
I'm not working with the population that I thought I would work with. But I love what I'm doing.
it's funny you called me out on being process oriented because I'm like, I got it from watching you. But the thing was, like, first year grad school, we were so behavioral.
Oh my gosh.
Like, you do the thing, you get the outcome, you move on.
Right, so like that's what I think about, like being
Yeah.
outcome driven. Oh my gosh, we're like two of the most outcome driven people are like talking on this podcast right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I got stuck on a process oriented team. I'm like, what is going on here?
Uh-huh.
But it opened my eyes to this whole side of the world that I had never seen before
Mhm.
because I'm so driven in the direction of goals
Yeah.
that I forget about the and enjoy today part.
Mhm.
But it's so important and it gives so much meaning and kind of color to the
Mhm.
world. And so, yeah, it changed my life. It
Mhm.
changed my direction.
Yeah.
So so I find it very important and meaningful.
Mhm.
But yeah, you just don't know,
Yeah.
right? Like, but I love my job and I love what I'm doing. And if you had asked anybody in our grad school, do you think this is what Tammy would be doing? They'd be like, no.
I feel like I called it though.
Mhm.
Like, I was like, you're not gonna end up at the where you want to be.
No.
Like, you're not gonna end up there.
I'm like, yes, I am. And you're like, I don't know.
And then I shut up and just watched.
But it didn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that speaks to this whole, like your 5-year plan, grad school was a 5-year plan. You just don't know what's going to happen along the way.
I mean, first year, did we think I would have been the one to drop out?
Oh my gosh, no.
Like,
you were way more committed than I was. You know what I mean? To the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To the end goal.
Mhm.
And then
Things happened.
yeah.
You know?
Mhm.
But that's okay. It's okay for things to change. It's
Mhm.
okay to admit that thing wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Because you don't really know till you start to experience it.
Yeah.
That you're like, no, I thought this would be amazing and it's not. So how am I going to account for that? And
Yeah.
it can look a lot of different ways.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. And I think that's one thing that is so hard to kind of identify and take action on is we have these plans and goals, and there's a difference between not necessarily hitting them, but then once you do and it being different
Mm.
and not being okay with it. Like, I think about my experience with grad school is that was my goal. That was my goal for as long as I could remember. And then I got there and I saw like what that career would have been like deeply. Like, I thought like working in like tangential settings like showed me, but like actually seeing it,
Yeah.
I was like, no, this isn't it. But then being okay with that.
Well,
And
that's the
like,
work, right?
yeah, that's the okay, now like now what do I do? Like, I accomplished this and then essentially walking away from it.
Mhm.
Like, yeah.
Like
I
you
don't
walked
know.
away from grad school, I walked away from going
Mhm.
to the sites where I thought I would be happy.
Yeah.
Like when it came down to applying for internship at the very end,
Mhm.
I was like, I don't know what to do
Yeah.
because I don't want to go there. So now what?
Yeah.
Right? And so there was some work to be done there, and I had trouble letting go of it. I
Mhm.
still struggle with it sometimes,
Yeah.
and that's okay. When
Mhm.
it's been your goal for a long time, you can have a lot of feelings
Yeah.
about changing course.
Mhm. Even if all signs point to you need to change course, like even if you haven't
Yeah.
hit it, and like if it's something that you keep like trying to win or trying to like gain, like if it's something you keep fighting for and it's not happening, and then you change, it's okay to still feel the feelings about the other
To
thing.
feel the loss,
Yeah.
right? Like, because it is a loss.
Mhm.
Even if the road you ended up going down was amazing,
Mhm.
there's still loss.
Yeah.
And you have to work through that at some point,
Mhm.
right? And it can take a little bit of time,
Mhm.
it can take a long time. It can be something that kind of comes back around in
Mhm.
unexpected ways, in times you don't expect,
Mhm.
right? So, like, that's okay.
Yeah.
It it happens,
Mhm.
right? And so we roll with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it really does boil down to getting the lay of the land,
Mhm.
like in an honest sense, like not in a everything is going wrong sense, not in a everything is rosy sense, but what are the objective truths?
Right.
What is the situation?
Yeah.
And then what is a better situation?
Right. I like that. Now,
Mhm.
this now, and make it better.
Mhm.
Yes.
So, if the year isn't ending the way you thought, or if you're feeling things that you're not quite sure why you're feeling,
Mhm.
take that lay of the land.
Just go with it.
Come up with something better. That sounds super easy. I didn't mean
Ah,
that
no.
tone, but
Simple,
yeah,
not easy, right?
exactly.
Simple, not easy.
Mhm.
So there's some work to be done there. And get help if you need it.
Mhm.
Reach out to trusted people.
Mhm.
It could be your business partner. It could be a trusted friend. It could be a therapist, whoever it is.
Mhm.
And there's lots of other ones. Those are
Yeah.
just the three I chose
Mhm.
because you're kind of like all three of those.
Yes.
So, like
Mhm.
figure out who that is for you and
Exactly.
go to them
Yep.
and support through it.
Mhm.
You can do this. You can do hard things.
Yeah. And even when it's not what you expected, you got there because you're strong enough to figure it out.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, I feel like that kind of concludes the episode this week.
Yeah.
All right, guys. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, hit us up on the interwebs and the Instagrams, and we will talk to you later.
Bye, friends.